In the meantime, the International Court of Justice on Friday ordered Israel to halt military operations in Rafah. It also ordered Israel to keep open the Rafah crossing into Gaza for the unhindered provision of humanitarian aid. ICJ rulings are legally binding, but the court has no concrete means to enforce them. Israel had argued before the court that an order to stop military activity would give free rein to Hamas extremists and prevent its army from rescuing hostages taken in the group's brutal October 7 attack. Prosecutor Karim Khan alleged that senior Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, plus top Hamas officials, were guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity related to the war in Gaza and the October 7 attack.
The court considered that, in conformity with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in.
Let's also tell you that the Palestinian ambassador to the UN hailed the International Court of Justice's order for Israel to halt military operations in Rafah and called for Israel to abide by the ruling immediately. He said it is expected that resolutions of the ICJ be implemented without hesitation.
The provisional measures adopted by the ICJ. We are grateful for South Africa and those who supported them for going back to the ICJ, asking them for additional provisional measures. And we welcome these provisional measures, including stopping, the military operation in Rafah. We believe that the provisional measures of the ICJ also previously asked for stopping all military operations in the Gaza Strip and stopping these crimes and potential crimes of genocide against our people in the Gaza Strip.
Now to discuss this further, I'm joined by Bolu Michael-Biyi, a foreign policy analyst. Michael, many thanks for coming on. Bolu, many thanks. What is your assessment of the ICJ's ruling, and do you believe it adequately addresses the severity of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
It's a welcome development, that we're seeing this happening now. And the same ICJ mentioned a couple of months ago that if nothing is done in terms of humanitarian action in that region, there's going to be gross loss of lives. So it's not a surprise that this is happening right now. However, if it adequately solves what's on ground, now that depends on the humanitarian agencies and those on ground, because the ICJ can say, can set the foundation legally for humanitarian aid organizations to carry out their role. However, if they refuse to do so, or there's no adequate resources, then the people will continue to starve and the humanitarian crisis will continue. So it sets the foundation. However, the bulk of the work is on the humanitarian aid organizations.
So the ICJ's ruling has been hailed as a major victory for Palestinian rights, but some argue it could embolden extremist elements and undermine regional stability. How do you balance, competing interests and priorities in this very complex geopolitical landscape?
Well, I'll be of a different opinion in the sense that on two fronts. First, the majority of the countries surrounding the region kind of, in principle, impliedly or expressly, pledge allegiance aligned with Palestine. So the mere order for humanitarian aid to pass through, I don't think would cause regional instability in any way. And I won't really call it a victory because we need to understand, people need to understand the purpose of the ceasefire. The basic principle behind that order is to allow humanitarian aid to pass through. If it was a ceasefire for negotiation, then I would say, okay, maybe it's advancing the cause of the Palestinian state to be independent. Or if it's just for humanitarian action, I don't think it has any major substance as to the aspirations of the Palestinian people.
So what are the implications of the ICJ's ruling for the United States relationship with Israel, particularly given the Biden administration's commitment to human rights and international law? How might this impact U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East?
I won't say that it would impact it greatly. However, one thing is clear. It's a test of U.S.'s commitment, because as said earlier, said that some time on the show that Israel had the air of USA, and USA has the air of Israel as well. So even if Israel wants it to pass through and USA says otherwise, they will actually give it a thought. So this is a test of US's commitment to international law or humanitarian action, as they claim. So let's see what happens and what unfolds in the coming days.
Right. So considering the ICJ's ruling and the ongoing conflict in Gaza, what is the most critical step that the international community can take to prevent, further escalation and promote a lasting, resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? What role should foreign policy analysts like yourself play in shaping this type of response?
Okay, well, the international community can actually do a lot, and I think it's important for international, for countries all over the world to, put pressure on both parties to actually sit at the table and negotiate. A lot of people just, kind of talk about Israel, but there are two sides to this story. There are two parties involved. So it's not just about if Israel says today that they actually want to sit to the on the table, and the Palestinians say they are not coming. That does not advance any cause. So it's the responsibility of the international community to ask both sides to sit at the table and negotiate and ensure that whatever the negotiation addresses the root cause. Another thing is for the world to pledge that humanitarian action. I know Rwanda at some time they send aid to Palestine. We want to see more of that from the international community, and also pledge resources for the rebuilding of the infrastructure of Palestine. Most importantly, as the USA did and put together the Marshall Plan for the reconstruction of Europe, the world must come together for the rebuilding of the infrastructure of this broken country. And lastly, for foreign policy analysts like myself, well, it's our core responsibility to ensure that we give unbiased opinion and analysis to policymakers and the decision makers on offer. I think that's the basis or the core responsibility of a person like myself.
Bolu, many thanks for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us.